Hey everybody, welcome back to Diesel Creek. My name's Matt. Behind me, my new, to me, Ingersoll smooth drum roller. Now I can already hear some of you guys feverishly just typing away in the comments, Matt, how many rollers do you need? Well, I'm hoping this one will be the one to replace all of them. So if you're not aware, I have worked on and own many rollers, and that's because they are a vital part of moving dirt. Is compacting it back down so that it holds its shape and doesn't settle and sink. And there's about 10,000 different reasons why you want to compact your dirt. So as I said, I have many different rollers and they serve different purposes, and some of them are different sizes and kind of like a pick your poison type of thing. You need a small roller for this, you need a big roller for that. This thing is a very in-between size. This is somewhere in the neighborhood of 18,000 pounds, I do believe. And it's a smooth drum, which is great for when you need a smooth drum. But it also came with this nice shell kit, which can turn it into a pad foot roller when one is needed or desired. Basically what this thing does is it's two halves there, and you just set it down on top of that smooth drum, you bolt it down, drive forward, set the other half on, bolt it down, and Bob's your auntie. Now you're pad foot compacting. And because I know in the past on my roller videos when I talk about sheep foot or pad foot rollers, that's a pad foot. This is a pad foot roller, not a sheep foot roller. This is a sheep's foot roller. I know it's not exactly apples to oranges, but it is a different thing. A lot of people just call pad foot rollers sheep foot rollers. Pad foot, sheep foot, pad foot, sheep foot. There's also grid type rollers, which you don't really ever see, but they do make them. So I picked this thing up a couple of weeks ago, and I got it for what I consider to be a pretty good deal because it's got some issues, as most of my equipment does. So I was able to get what I would consider to be a pretty good buy on this machine at $15,000, and I was able to get that pretty good price because there's a pretty good issue going on over here. This thing is just dumping hydraulic oil out on this side of the drum. I believe this motor on this side is what turns the counterweight inside the drum to make it vibrate. The other side, I think, is the motor that drives the drum and actually turns it. I have a 50-50 shot at being right on that, but this machine does have what's considered to be drum drive. What I suspect our issue is over here is the seal at the end of this motor has gone bad and is leaking. So I think to get at it, all we have to do is pull these hydraulic lines off, and there's a couple bolts down in here, and we should be able to pull that motor right out of there. The rest of the machine seems to be pretty good though. I got one brand new tire on there. It still has like the little titties on the side here. The whole unit is powered by a Cummins 4BT, so those are super awesome little engines. Those are pretty darn reliable. I have a lot of faith in that. I don't think there's an hour meter on here. I don't see an hour meter on this unit, so I have no way of knowing how many hours are actually on it. But, it looks like it's been around a while. It's been beat up a little bit. No sense in lying about that, but that is all cosmetic and also what helped me to get it a little bit cheaper. Lots of things like this whole rear screen here is kind of dented in and smashed up, and it's also missing a bunch of bolts, so it just rattles like crazy, makes all kind of noise, so we're gonna have to fix that. That screen rattles, the hood rattles, these railings rattle, the whole thing just vibrates like crazy. So we're gonna have to take care of all that because it drives me insane to sit on there and just listen to all that excess noise. It's bad enough running a piece of machinery, you have to deal with loud noise all day while you're running it. We try to eliminate as much of that as possible. So I've got rollers bigger than this, I've got rollers smaller than this. Why did we need this one? Well, this one kind of finds itself right in the middle, and that is where I like to be with a lot of machines. This one is small enough that I can haul it behind my pickup truck, but it's big enough to cover some ground and really pack a punch. So I think all we have to do to remove this motor and check out that seal is take off these 3 hydraulic lines that are coming in here. I've already labeled them so that we don't confuse them. And then I think, as best I can tell, there's only 2 bolts that actually hold this little motor on there. I don't know how it connects to whatever it is connected to inside of this drum, so that might be the next adventure. But hopefully it's just those 2 bolts and maybe like a Lovejoy coupling in there. I'm not sure. If it's a Lovejoy, we should be able to just slide the motor right back out of there. All right, well, there's no real great way to do this without making a mess. I got some pig mats on hold here. And of course we got our catch pan. Hopefully there's no pressure like from the tank or anything. Hopefully it's just what's in this line that's draining right now. Oh, it's O-ring face. I didn't see that coming. I don't have any O-ring face plugs. It quit dripping anyhow, which is good. And then I have some rubber plugs we can put in there. These rubber hydraulic stopper plugs are the ticket for doing this kind of stuff. They work pretty darn good. Just dandy. So one of these is your pressure line, the other side is a return line. The other one, this one right here in the middle that's still connected, is what's called a case drain. And I'm not a hydraulic expert, but basically the way I understand it, excess fluid can leak past the seals inside of the motor and build up slight pressure inside of the case of the hydraulic motor, and this gives that fluid a place to go. It just goes right back to tank. So what can cause a seal to blow out in a motor like this is if this line would get pinched or clogged for some reason. So first thing I'm going to do is check this guy and make sure that there is no obstruction, then it freely flows back to tank. Shouldn't really be anything come out of this one, maybe a few drops. Yeah, nothing. I think that's a good sign. Oh yeah, I just let loose the floodgates down here. I pulled that bottom mounting bolt off of this pump and it is just pouring fluid out of there. I'm hoping this whole drum isn't full of oil, like I kind of suspected it might be. Still flowing out of there pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and take that top bolt off and see if the pump's gonna drop out for us. Seems like it is. Look at that. This might not be too... I shouldn't say that. Don't... I'm going to stop myself right there. I don't know what that part was, but I don't know that it should have fallen out like that. Okay, this has been sitting here draining just like so for a good while. And I don't know how long I'm going to let it go, but I know our pan's getting pretty full. Good bit of fluid there. I can't find any place on this drum where you could actually drain it if it was full of oil, but I did find this plug up there, and I'm going to open that up and try to stick my bore camera in there and see what we can see. If it's got 50 gallons of hydraulic oil in there, well, we might have to do some head scratching. I could totally see that happening though. If that inner compartment just lets that oil drain into the drum, over time that seal got bad and people would just keep adding hydraulic fluid thinking it was losing it somewhere, and it was. But if it was losing it into the drum, it was just accumulating in that drum, and it wouldn't start to show itself or leak out until it got up over halfway there to start leaking around this area here. That's just a hypothesis, but let's try to prove it. I don't know what this thing is, but it's a magnetic drain plug. It's got a magnet on the back here with a little bit of metal shaving on it. Not bad, but a little bit. All right, let's stick the bore scope in here and see what we can see. You guys think this drum's full of oil or not? Well, I can't exactly tell what we're looking at, but oh, yeah, maybe so. We might be full of hydraulic oil like I was saying. Oh yeah, you guys see it? That's the bearing here that the drum rides on. We're looking at the rollers right there. I can see there's hydraulic fluid all the way down in here. Oh boy. I guess now we have to wonder too if the oil could be coming from the other side or if we know it's from this side. Just because it's leaking out of this side of the drum doesn't necessarily mean that this motor is the one that's leaking. Interesting. Alright, so there's the hydraulic motor we pulled out. And I think it's leaking around this seal right here. Now don't laugh, but I've reconnected it and I want to fire up the machine and try to run this motor out of the machine to verify that it is leaking out of that seal. I've never had this thing apart. I have no idea exactly how the other side of this thing is put together and if it's possible for fluid to leak from this motor through the planetary into that drum. I don't think it is, but then again, it almost certainly has to be somewhere because there is a through shaft. So I've connected up our pressure lines. I've left the case drain off too because that'll tell us a little bit about the motor. I don't know how accurate since it's not going to be under load, but if that thing blows a bunch of fluid out of that case drain, well then the motor is bypassing too much internally and we're going to have that rebuilt. So this has the potential to coat that area of the shop in hydraulic fluid, but it could also tell us a good bit about this motor and what exactly it is that needs fixed. There's a good shot of this thing and what it looks like previous to us running it, and I'll fire it up and we'll give her a go.
Yeah, I bet that could do it.
Yeah, we did not have to speculate. That is most definitely not supposed to do that. So that's our problem. And at the rate that it was passing oil out of this case drain, I'm considering just getting the entire motor rebuilt. I think it's probably the smart option at this point. Usually the rebuild kits for these things are not terrible. If I find a kit, honestly, I might do it myself. I've never done one, but I don't think there's a whole lot going on in there. Just having a closer look at things here. You guys, hopefully you can see, I don't know if you guys can tell, this seal is kind of cone shaped and there's like an outer lip that's clear up here. I wonder, I doubt it's supposed to be like that. I've never seen any kind of seal that is like cone shaped like that, how it slopes up towards the shaft. And the way this lip is sticking up here, I feel like the whole seal got like pushed up somehow from the inside. So I wonder if there's something not right in this motor or what's going on there. We could just easily take this snap ring out of here and probably pop that seal right out and replace it, but I wonder what else is going on inside of there that we have so much fluid bypassing in that case drain. I'm going to take this thing back off these hoses, get it cleaned up, and have a gander. I don't even know what make, model, or anything this pump is yet, so once we figure that out, we can start finding parts for it. Okay, well, it was my intention to send this thing out to a hydraulic shop and just have it rebuilt, but I've spoken to all the ones locally that I know about, and they're all telling me it's going to be a month plus lead time to get something like this looked at and potentially rebuilt. Could be longer, so I don't really want to have this thing down that long. I'm going to try to zap it apart here, see if we can see if there's actually any physical damage to the motor portion, or if it's maybe just bad seals or no ring or something. And hopefully, fingers crossed, we could just throw some seals at this thing and have it back in action. It was working when I tried it out before I bought the machine, so I mean, I don't think it can be too awful bad, but we won't know until we're in there. It might be a good time to mention, I don't think I've ever torn one of these apart, actually. I think I've seen them apart, but never personally done it. Uh-oh. Things are happening. There we go. I hear a little pieces, parts came loose and are now floating around in here. So there's no going back now. She's got to come all the way apart. It is a piston pump. I thought it was a gear pump. Well, it just got exponentially harder to put back together. I want to reiterate the fact that I do not know what I'm doing. So if I'm doing something wrong, feel free to tell me about it in the comments. I feel like one wrong move here and everything's just going to fall to pieces. I guess that turned out better than I thought. I really don't know what to look for as far as wear goes, though. I mean, I can see some worn areas, but nothing looks super, super bad. Random needle bearings falling out of there. That doesn't seem good. This splined cone thing here, it's definitely got a wear pattern going on it. And again, I don't know what to consider bad. Hydraulics have a very high tolerance, very tight tolerance. So, yeah, I can see some scratches showing up on this thing right here. I can just barely feel them with my fingernail, so honestly, that could be pretty substantial, I'm not sure. Our swash plate's still stuck in here. The swash plate definitely looks like it has some wear to it. Really not a lot to these pumps, though. That's lucky for us. So there's an angled plate in here. I believe that's your swash plate, is what that's called. And I'm not sure how to remove it. I don't want to damage it, so I got to be careful. There she be. That's one worn out swash plate, I do believe. There's probably somebody in the comments screaming about something I'm doing wrong here. But ignorance is bliss. If I hold it just right, you guys can see there's definitely some areas. That's not a smudge. I can feel that with my finger. It's worn there. And all these little lines that you see around there is basically wear. I mean, even the fact that it's kind of polished up here and more matte out at the edges, as opposed to like the backside is kind of like that matte finish all the way through. But we still have like a wear area in here. I don't know if that's like cavitating fluid does that or what causes any of this stuff, but I'm pretty sure that this disc is junk. And if we mic'd it in the center here, it would be thinner than out at the edges, I'm betting. I can't quite feel it with my fingers, but just a hunch telling me that that's worn pretty good in the center. If I can find a rebuild kit for this, I'm confident that we can rebuild it ourselves, but finding that kit might be a challenge. The other part of this that's important is the actual body of the housing here. You know, because this thing rotates in there and it can get worn on this housing. I have no idea what's acceptable and not acceptable. There's our seal. And see, before you say, oh, well, that's a terrible way to do that, I didn't even drill all the way through the seal. I just got in there far enough for that screw to bite. Bam. So we didn't get any contamination down in our bearing. There is a real part of me that says we could probably press this seal back flat and it would hold pressure again for a while. The problem is I think we're getting excessive case pressure, and that's what blew out the seal in the first place. You guys can really see now the shape of this seal. I don't think it's supposed to be cone shaped like that. I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be flat. But I could be wrong. It's happened once or twice. There we go. I'm not sure how much of this shaft up here at the end is wore or polished up from use, or if it was polished that way from the factory. I think it had to be polished to an extent from the factory. our seal surface out here at the end. Definitely has a little ridge to it. Seen better days. Oh yeah, the housing definitely has some damage to it. Like I said, I know we could put seals back in this thing and run it for a little while, but how long it would really last, probably not that long on account of the damage that we're finding in here. I don't know how well I can show you guys, but there's some scoring on here and some places where it looks like they kind of smeared metal on the side of this housing, like it pulled a burr. There's some scratches and stuff in other places as well. It's not looking real good. Well, it's actually been several weeks later since I pulled this thing in here, and I really had a hard time finding anything about that hydraulic motor that we removed. The ID tag off of the actual motor was missing, and tracking down another one of these machines to read the ID tag off of that one's motor took a little bit of time. Once I did, though, I was able to find someone that could actually repair that. So I sent that hydraulic motor off last week to get rebuilt, hoping we have it back this week. And in the meantime, we can be fixing up on a few of the other issues this machine has. As you can tell, the seat is not in the best shape anymore. It's a bit rusted out. Whole cushion's missing off the back. The bottom's not too terrible, but it's pretty well junk. So I'm gonna cut that one off of there. And I picked us up a new one. So we'll go ahead and knock that old seat off of there, and I've got a good replacement we can slap on there and have a nice comfy ride. Well, with the seat up, we have access to the air filter, and I haven't checked this thing out yet, so I'm going to pull it off and see how bad it is. Yeah, it's a little banged up, a little tattered. We're going to go ahead and replace those while we're in here. That way we know they're good. Well, I ended up just pulling that whole seat platform off of there because the piano hinge here on the back side of this seat mount is all bent and broken and torn up. So we're going to go ahead and replace that too while we're in here, might as well. And then we'll have a completely refurbished seating platform here. No bueno. So if you've ever wondered what it's like to live with ADHD, you're watching a pretty good case study of it right here. I drilled the holes to mount our new seat. All the while, I know I can't mount it until I get the new piano hinge. And while I'm out, I'm also going to pick up all the filters to do a complete service on this unit. And I was sitting here scratching my head thinking about what else I could do before I went to get those parts. And then figured, well, go ahead and try to fix this railing, keep it from vibrating, because man, this thing is obnoxiously loud when this engine's running. So I popped off this cover here on the back side of the dash, and we've uncovered a furry little friend has made a nice little home here. So we're going to have to evict him. I'm sure he's probably actually not in there already. Looks pretty well abandoned. But we'll get that cleaned out, and hopefully this U-bolt can be loosened up and freed up enough to be reused here. The railing on the other side appears to be nice and snug. Well, I ordered us up some new piano hinge to fix up our seat mount. I got more than we needed, so I got to cut this to length first, drill some holes, and we can bolt this seat assembly back together. got some new air filters. Oh yeah, that's gonna be nice. The U-bolt that holds off the railing is broken here. One side's too short, but I'm gonna try to see if I can't cheat it and make it work anyway. That's nice and solid. No more vibrating out of that one. Okay, we've got our new vibratory motor back from being rebuilt. Let's crack this thing open and see what we got. So, as I suspected, this new seal is flat, not dished out like the other one. So I'm pretty excited about this. This turned out to be kind of hard to track down. I got it rebuilt for $1,900. It was not a cheap repair, but what are you gonna do? Okay, I guess this thing's ready to fire back up. Well, the remanufactured motor is all installed. That means we are ready to try this thing out. Obviously, not going to turn it on in here on my concrete floor, so we're going to move a couple things. We'll take this thing outside and fire it up, let it warm up, and then there actually is a little bit more service that we need to do. So I got the manual for the machine, and there actually is supposed to be some oil inside of this drum. It's not like this thing just filled up the drum and it was never supposed to have any oil in it. So there's like an index key right here. If you guys can see that, it's like a piece of key stock welded onto the drum. We need to put that at the 6 o'clock position and then we'll drain the oil out of it. But it sounds like we should heat it up first according to what I'm seeing in the manual. And the same goes for the rest of the machine. We're gonna go ahead and do a complete service on it. I've got all the filters. We'll do the fuel, the oil, and the hydraulic. Because this pump didn't actually fail completely, I think we're safe to go ahead and fire it up and run it as is before changing some stuff. But normally, if you had a failure on something like this, where like maybe metal had gone through the whole hydraulic system, you wouldn't want to run this new remanufactured motor on the oil that's in there. You'd want to try to flush it as best you could. But I think we're okay in this case. And the beatings will continue until the morale improves. I'm cleaning up all my tools, moving things away from this machine so we can move it, and I find this O-ring that was supposed to go on the end of the pump, and I completely forgot about because it's been over a month since I took this thing apart now. That means I get to pop the motor back off of there, reinstall the O-ring. Then we can finally put it to its test. All right, so the blows just keep on coming. I've only started this machine since I've owned it, when I drove it in here was the 4th time I'd ever started this engine. And that was because it was leaking so bad, I didn't want to really run it. I wanted to hurry up, start it, test drive it, decided I wanted to buy it, started it up again, loaded it on my trailer, got here, started it up again, unloaded it. It sat outside for a couple weeks, and then when I was ready to work on it, started it up again, drove it in here. So, if my math's right, that's 4 times. 2 of those times that I went to start it, the starter was not wanting to go. And I just had to come back here and jump the solenoid out, and it fired right up, no issue. Today, I'm having the same issue, so I imagine the solenoid is bad, or at least just needs taken off and cleaned up. Because the solenoid is bad, and it also runs the Bendix, what engages in the flywheel there, I'm having trouble getting it to stay engaged and crank the engine up. We're gonna have to fix that. I'm gonna keep running it for a few minutes here, just try to get everything nice and hot, like I said, so we can do some service on it. I've got some of this bigger rock over here that I haven't topped with small stuff yet. I need to make sure it gets packed down really good and tight before I put the small stuff on it, otherwise you'll have loose ones kind of popping up through your smaller material. So we'll run the roller over on this a little bit, kind of pack it down real nice and tight like. This thing works great. I'm excited. That's obviously the first I've been able to run it, and yeah, seems like a nice tight machine. Still no leaks over here. Oh, looking pretty good. Sweet. Everything should be plenty hot. Let's go ahead and pull this back in the shop and do the service on it. Holy crap. I didn't see that coming. I believe this is supposed to be 90 weight. Very clearly it's hydraulic at this point. I don't remember how much it says that this holds, but I don't think it's this much. Well, I think this is the 4th time I've had to empty that, and that was the last little bit of oil that's coming out of that drum. Alright, so with the drum drained, I just pulled the roller back a little bit and got this metal tab here at the 12 o'clock position as instructed in the directions. So we're going to add oil to that plug there, and if you guys can see that plug down there, they're both removed, and that lower plug is going to be the fill level plug. So we're going to add oil to the top until oil starts coming out the bottom, and then we will know she's full, and we will put the plugs back in. While I'm doing that, I'm going to go ahead and get the engine oil to start draining. It looks pretty black. I don't think it's been changed in quite a while. There's no hours written on the filters. Yep, nice and black. I think it's overdue to be changed. I got this fancy bucket pump from Fluidol. This thing's really handy, and I'm using it to refill my drum. I've just plumbed it right into that hose since it's the same size pipe fitting. Normally I would use the little gun that comes on it and tells me how much oil I'm dispensing and everything, but I boogered up the threads somehow on it. It was over there under the shelf, and I don't know, something must have smashed it, and it's leaking now, so I'm gonna have to replace the threaded end on the hose, but probably pumps faster without that handle on there anyway. We just got to sit there and watch that bung down there until oil starts coming out. Well, there's the end of bucket number 1. There we go. We got oil. Just put the plugs back in and we are done filling the drum. Alright, all we got left to do now is refill our engine with oil. I'm going to throw in some new fuel filters, and I would like to change the planetary oil as well. Usually I can just give them the old bear grip on there, but not today. There we go. I'm not usually a fan of these oil in a box setups, but these were on sale, and in this scenario, it's all working out pretty good. Hands-free adding oil here. Engine oil's all topped off. Slapped on a new oil filter over there. Still got to label that one with the hours. But last but not least, I'd like to change these hydraulic filters up under there. Thought I was going to have to resort to the old screwdriver method there. Somebody put those suckers on there tight. Oh. Well, it mostly hit the pan. There's a mess everywhere. Pig mat here. Get the pig mats. Ugh. This makes bucket number 5 or 6, and I think it could probably still use another bucket or 2, but it's really close. Generally, these machines hold a lot more than they actually require. You're definitely nowhere near starving the pumps or anything, even when you're probably like half full. But I think they do a lot of that extra capacity to help keep the temperature of the oil down, so you're not running that same exact, 20 gallons of oil the whole time. It's got a whole big tank here to come and cool off in. But anyway, it was super duper low. Like, I'm actually kind of surprised it even functioned. Alrighty, well, now that the shop looks like some sort of a heavy equipment triage center, and there's a mess of spilt oil and tools and empty supplies all over the place, I believe this thing is ready for action. And that's good, because it's almost midnight. Everything is ready to roll on this machine with the exception of that solenoid on the starter. I ended up having to order that solenoid. Nobody around town had one in stock. I could tear it apart, but it's so cheap it's not even worth messing with, because I've done this before where you tear it apart, you clean it all up, you put it back together, and it works a few times, and then it goes right back to hanging up just like this one's doing. So we got the new one on the way. That's just a couple bolts and it's switched right out. It's really nothing to see. I'm really glad we took the time to put the love on this roller, because this hopefully is the roller that I'm keeping long term. That little bit that I ran it outside a little bit ago for you guys, I really like the feel of this thing. It's big enough that it hits good and really packs a punch, and it feels stable, but it's not too big to where it feels like it's gigantic in a small space, and it's still easy to haul. What good is it living out in the middle of nowhere if you can't take your roller for a rip at midnight? And with that, guys, I think that this roller is officially done and ready to roll. Pun definitely intended. If you haven't already, be sure you guys drop me a comment down below. Let me know what you think about my new roller, and if you think that it's going to hold up and be up to the task. The next time you guys will probably see this machine is when we are either working on the house project or bringing material back here and raising the grade up for the laydown yard here. Hopefully this machine is going to be instrumental in both of those jobs. I think it's ready to go. If you haven't seen it yet, we have new t-shirts available over at the merch store. That's dieselcreek.com. Link is down in the description. Get yourself a sweet new shirt as we come into summer here. And I think if they're not on sale already, we will have some 4th of July t-shirts coming very soon. So head on over to dieselcreek.com. Pick yourself up a sweet new shirt for the summertime. If you don't want a shirt, another way you can help support the channel is just by tickling that little thumbs up button down below the video there. Really helps out the channel, doesn't cost you guys a dime. So if you guys like this video, be sure you hit that thumbs up, and I will catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Later.